Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Man on the Rocks. It is I, the premier politicker professor, Joe. Joining me, as always, I don't have a good alliteration for Atlas.
Well, that makes me sad. But hello, everybody.
This week, we're revisiting politics, this time with some fire underneath us. Atlas rants for like 3/4 of this episode, and I chime in where I can.
Bro, I got thoughts.
We have thoughts. Atlas has thoughts. I have a few thoughts. Atlas has most of the thoughts this episode. Either way, it's a fantastic time. We talked about politics. We love talking about politics here, almost as much as Atlas loves telling people about these announcements.
Fortunately for everyone else, no announcements this week.
No announcements this week.
Other than happy holidays, whatever that may mean to you. We're really excited to move into a new year with this project, the podcast. Got some exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. Got gameplay videos that should be coming up relatively soon. We got a new idea for some sort of like virtual pseudo tournament thing that's coming up that we're excited to share with y'all.
We're still cooking.
So some interesting stuff. But as far as like tournaments and things go, nothing new, nothing really.
Spend time with your loved ones.
Yeah, pretty much. Spend time with your loved ones. And check back for a new episode of the podcast in the next week or so. We'll have something new for you. Announcements-wise, tournament-wise,
probably
all that
start of the
stuff.
New year.
Hopefully first week of the new year.
Yeah.
We're looking for some new announcements. We're keeping our eyes to the Discords and the social medias and all of those things. So.
Yeah, all that good. Speaking of all that good, all the social links in the description, in the show notes, Discord server, all that fun stuff. Come on, say hi to us. Especially want to say hello to this episode's lucky patron. Drum roll, please. Meow Sarita, one of our OGs. Thank you for supporting us. This one goes out to you. You should come on down, get a drink with us. I've heard some rumblings in the old Twitter sphere anymore. X universe, X sphere. Where is there like a good name that's not Twitter sphere anymore? Because I like the term Twitter sphere too much.
Twitter sphere is catchy. I think let's roll with it.
Oh, I'm just like asking you, like just in general, like Twitter sphere is like a word that's been around for like ever, but like there's nothing like
Twitter
fun.
Sphere, yeah.
Xverse, no, that's
Xverse.
That's awful. I hate that. I think I hate that more than the fact that that it's called X now. I've gotten really ignorant of a lot of the talkings about like CDH on social media. Like I still like will watch like gameplay videos and whatnot, and like I've mostly tuned out of like podcasts and like greater social media for the most part, which is probably to some detriment in terms of my play because I don't fully know what people are playing out there, but like I have enough like general knowledge and general intuition that I could probably figure out most things. A little help from the table maybe. But one thing in particular that's kind of slid across our desks that we've heard rumblings about, and Atlas, it sounds like people are bad-mouthing politics again, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that does sound like what we're hearing. I'm not really sure why. Seems like people don't like losing to others, like assessing threats or like misassessing threats. Mm-hmm. And it seems like that's something that some of the players out there are complaining about.
Okay, it is. I guess like the obvious question is obvious. Like, is that like actually like a problem? Is that like actually like a thing? I guess like it is possible to have like bad threat assessment and like misassess the situation, and it is possible to be the person in the driver's seat, kind of steering that like whole boat, so to speak.
Yes. And so one of the things I'm hearing complaints about is people are using CDH as a method to like debate different ways to play the game, and they're not trying to like play Magic at a higher level. competitive Magic at a higher level. So I think that one of the things to consider when thinking about CDH is like, what is the format exactly? And I think that is really what this conversation boils down to, is some people see the game as like 1v1 Magic, but instead of playing 1v1, you're playing 1v3, and it's at like a super competitive level, and blah, 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 blah. Which I think also lends itself to the argument that people are making where like you can't have a competitive multiplayer format. And I think that I think those two sort of like lean into one another, where my personal perspective is that multiplayer Magic is more akin to something of a board game, where there are 4 different like players sitting at this table, and you're obviously trying to win the game, but everyone's trying to win the game in like the most wholesome way possible, while negotiating the various intricacies of that particular board game. And I think that the complication can come from the fact that the people see the game as this 1v1 format that is turning into a 1v1 v1 v1 v1, when it's like, it's not really. The intricacies of politics and a multiplayer format are significantly more nuanced than if they were to just be like 1 versus 3, or like 1v1 v1 v1.
Yeah,
right?
Very different dynamics, whichever way you go, either 4-person free-for-all or 1v3. Like, those are just categorically very, very different. You're playing by a very different set of rules when you like show up to a table with that mentality or that experience.
Yeah. And I think that depending on how you look at it, you'll see either politics as an annoyance of, you're not letting me do my thing because my card's saying I'm allowed to do XYZ, and the person to my left or my second left or whatever didn't decide to use their pact of negation on me when they should have. I think that it all just kind of depends on like what the perspective is when you're coming into the format, and I think that that's a large part of this discussion. But at the same time, there are people who are like, they're saying that they're commander, like CDH advocates, right? But they're not. They're like, oh, politicking is really annoying. Like, people are posturing, or they're like talking way too much, and they're wasting energy, right? I think the biggest thing that I've heard that I super agree with, as someone who has played in and dealt in casinos before, is that CDH is most akin to like a Texas Hold'em game or some sort of poker, where people are playing and posturing against one another, and they're trying to communicate with one another that they have XYZ, or they're going to stop this, that, or the other, when they don't necessarily have that, thing, right? Yeah. So I think that that sort of communication is the biggest part of CDH. It's part of like, personally, why I love the format is I think that like players' abilities to communicate, whether on a verbal or non-verbal level, are like, they substantially impact the game, and one's ability to bluff and like play players in addition to the cards is like one of the reasons that the format is so meaningful, successful. I'm not sure what the right word is.
Yeah.
But I think that is a large part of it. And when you're like, oh, I'd rather just have my cards speak for like my playability, there's something to it, right? You can say like, oh, I knew to use my Cyclonic Rift at this time in order to generate the most advantage for me. That's super useful, right? That's good for you. That's good for the game. Blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, there's also something to be said for those who can say, hey, guys, I have this Nature's Claim. I'm not sure what I should use it on. Should I use it on this heuristic study right now, or should I wait to hold it for like a breach that might come down, like unprotected or something like that, right? And so I think that's something that is like really valuable to the format, is politicking and deciding, like, as a table, what is good for us? What should we work together to accomplish? And then those players who are more successful at negotiating with the table to skew that play pattern towards their favor, those players deserve to win. Yeah. That's my perspective as someone who, like, I politic a lot. I'll cop to that. I think that it's a really important aspect of the game. I think that it's really useful. I think that it is an inherent player skill, and personally, I feel invalidated when players, especially players who are like, oh, I'm a big member of this community, I'm a big supporter of CEDH, say, oh, politicking is annoying, politicking is, like, invalid, politicking is something that I don't support because players are communicating too much. And I think that's just a different way of playing the game. I disagree with it.
Okay, so clickbait question: does politics have a place in CEDH?
Great question.
So like that's kind of like where it boils down to, because a lot of what I've seen, and like I see both sides of it. I have been on the other end of, like, guys, Joe's doing something, we need to fucking stop him right now. I'm like, guys, there's a heuristic study, and we've put 4 cards into it, and I'm going to be putting more cards into it. What is going on? Like, having to be on that sort of, like, back foot is annoying, I think, at, like, a basic level. If you are not prepared for that, if you are not understanding for that, if you're not putting that into, like, your thought rotation, I can understand the frustration. I can understand where that comes from. Yeah, that's totally annoying. I'm here to play the game. You know, having someone be able to run away with the game because they looked at me and said, you have things on the board. My things on the board are not nearly as good as the things on your things on the board. You're the problem. I see that frustration. But at the same time, where smoking gun, where there's smoke, there's fire. Like, yeah, I'm pointing out the things on your board because they're scary. And then you start getting into, are we, you know, am I making a fuss out of nothing to rile the table up, to do this, that, or the other, and then the mental games start playing. And I think for a lot of people, from what I've read and just kind of heard the mumblings of, that's where Magic stops being Magic, and that's where Magic starts being this weird social game. And I can understand the reasoning to want to play a card game for the cards and not play a card game for the people. I think that is a great philosophy and a great understanding of card games if you're playing 1 versus 1. I think that dynamic changes entirely when you introduce 2 other players into the game and everyone is fighting for their own win. Like, this isn't a cooperative board game where we are a 4-person free-for-all. One of us is going to win, and you want it to be yourself. That's a different dynamic to if me and you were to sit down and play a 1v1 format. I'm not going to tell you, oh, man, I'm not going to, like, counter-politic you. Like, that doesn't happen.
Right, yeah.
And I agree. I think I agree with your analogy of poker, because, like, I have always thought of Magic, even before I was a CEDH player, like, Magic is chess and poker in a high fantasy skin. I am, you know, moving my wizards on the chessboard and casting fireballs strategically. That's always how Magic has been. And, you know, you start getting into, like, the whole bluffing and stuff. It's like, bluffing's always been a part of one. How many, like, fucking the Luis Scott Vargas, like, pen trick, for example. That's a great bluff move. But you can gray area all you want. It was a good bluff move. Like, that I think is, like, the most political you can get in, like, 1v1. And even
for those who don't know, can you elaborate on what the pen move is?
Yeah, so for the uninitiated, it's been a while since I've revisited this moment, so I'm going to be missing some key details. Essentially, one of the all-time greats, Luis Scott Vargas, was facing down an attack. I think it was for lethal damage, and he had he had a trick up his sleeve, or the attack was going to put him in such a position that he was essentially dead on the next turn. It was a very bad attack that he was trying to stop as much as possible, but he knew his opponent had something. Either it was revealed, or he just had the tell on him. He got the read that there was something going on. So to try and induce going to the damage step before blockers are declared, because once we hit the damage step in the Magic the Gathering game, damage just happens. Like once we go no blockers declared, move to damage happens immediately. There's no point at which you can interact with the game. And he was trying to get in a situation where he's at the most life total, he's not losing enough blockers. Once again, I'm forgetting details, but these are kind of the basic building blocks. Opponent declares attackers. Luis Scott Vargas thinks for a minute. He thinks and he thinks and he thinks. And he reaches to grab his pen. And his opponent says, okay, we're in damage step. And he's like, I didn't say that. I didn't say we're in declare blockers yet. Right? We're leaving declare blocker step. He just grabbed his pen. But he was able to elicit information. He was able to move the game state along by using out-of-game actions, essentially. I feel like I'm missing critical parts for that story. It's been a while since I've revisited that moment. But that's kind of the gist of the pen trick. Was he bluffed that he was taking the damage from the attack in order to induce more information out of his opponent to make a better play that he had waiting in the wings. But he needed to know what his opponent was going to do and wait until the last part of priority, essentially, for him to take his action. That dynamic happens all the time in Cedh. Literally nonstop. When you are signing up, you are going to experience that. Again, I can see how that can be frustrating, but also at the same time, like, 1v1 Magic exists. 1v1 other card games exist. Chess exists. This is a different beast in and of itself that I think it has to play by a different set of rules. And I think politics is where we kind of get into it. And I think politics as a term can be really, really murky. I think at its best level, it's threat assessment in your favor some of the time. That's kind of the end of that thought.
Okay. Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I think that like you said, at its base level, politics is I'm assessing the game and I'm letting other players know. So it's a form of communication, right? I've said this before, I'll say it again. Politicking is just communicating with the table. It's different ways of communicating with the table, but it is communicating with the other players in your game. And I think that people who try to dispossess or disavow this type of communication in a game, they're players who are very mathematically good at the game, but not very good socially at a game. And or maybe they are good socially at the game, but they don't want to play that type of game.
Yeah, we're here to play Magic, not like Survivor or whatever. Or
right, and that's totally fine. But at the same time, like, that's just not what Commander is, right? No. So you see people who are on like the Commander Advisory like group or council or whatever it's called, and they talk about how like, this is what we're looking for in terms of banning cards. We want the game to be fun. We want the game to be this. We want the game to be that. We're not making this ban because it doesn't scale well, or we are making this ban because we don't think that the game is fun with this card in the rotation. That's great, right? But at the same time, like, you can't say that like players have to play your multiplayer format a specific way. If you're making that sort of like a broad blanket statement, you're saying like everyone has to enjoy this game the same way that I enjoy this game. And I think that, like, from what we've seen historically, obviously not that it can't change in the future, but what we've seen historically is that the game is like trying to
almost feels at odds with each other sometimes.
Yeah, it's trying to like bring in as many people as possible, say, hey, this is what I like about the game, like Magic in general, and I would like you to be able to enjoy that with me as well. I would like two other players, in addition to us two, to be able to enjoy that as well, right? And so when someone comes in and says, hey, communicating with other players is super unfun. It's not something that I enjoy. Making deals with your opponent in order to thwart me, who's ahead or not ahead, is really unfun. That is something that I just disagree with. And whether or not you view it as being like the correct way to play the game, I think that like being able to play one's cardboard is great. Being able to play one's
you got to be able to fundamentally play the cardboard well.
Yes, you have to be able to fundamentally play the cardboard well, but you don't necessarily need to be able to play the cardboard to its 100% of its capacity, right? Because that's, especially if you're talking about a format that you want to be accessible, where proxying is a thing that we should encourage because we want many players to enjoy this format at a high level.
You want your player, not the wallet. Yep.
Exactly. Like there's a line there where it's like, I want the player, not the wallet. Well, I want the player, not their ability to calculate numbers, right? Some people don't have the ability, or like they don't want to learn how to calculate numbers specifically to a super high degree. They don't want to see, oh, well, I drew this card, so the probability of XYZ is that. And I don't think it's a very wholesome or healthy format where we discourage players who are trying to play the game on a different axis from playing the game. I think it's inherently exclusionary when we say, hey, politicking is annoying. Hey, politicking is not cool. I'm just here to use CDH as a way to refine my like foundational magical skills. I want to be able to make sure that like I understand the strategic cost of XYZ, and because of that, I'm taking this game action. Okay, great. But like, and I'm
However,
sure
you're the
anyone
threat right now,
who
and no one's trying to win at the moment. We need to stop you.
Sure. And yes, exactly. And I think that like that's a really important part of the game is like when a player says, "Hey, it's really annoying when someone like politics the table against you when you haven't done anything, but like you're also playing, but also like 3 decks at the table are like stacks or ad nauseum, and not stacks or ad nauseum. They're playing stacks or mid range, and you're playing ad nauseum. And someone says, "Hey, you're the turbo deck. You need to be stopped. We need to pressure your life total as resource instead of attacking one another." And you're like, "Oh, this feels bad. Why are you attacking me? I'm just sitting here doing nothing." Yes, you're doing nothing because you're playing bad cards, because you're playing ad nauseum. You're just trying to resolve one specific spell on turn like 4 or 5 at the latest that will draw you 30 to 40 cards that will allow you to win the game. Yeah. Like, why are you complaining when someone says, "Hey, let's stop them from doing that so scot-free"? Sure, they're not taking any game actions, but that's because they aren't being stopped by any game actions. The only thing that's restricting the game actions they can take is the fact that their life total is dropping below 40, right? And I think that is something that I disagree with. Like, why are we stopping players from playing on this additional axis other than numbers, right? Like, and especially if you're trying to make the format accessible, why are we saying, "Hey, let's stop more veteran players from conveying information to less veteran players so they can play more correctly"?
Yeah. Or like innovating. Like that's one of the things that I feel like it's kind of goes without saying, is like it's innovation. Like, you can't put 4 people with theoretically their own agency in a competition and say one of you has to be the winner and not expect some level of communication or cooperation throughout the entirety of the thing. And I think if you start going the way of, oh, politics annoying, politics bad for the game, you throw out one of the like unique parts about CDH. There's a number of other competitive card games out there. None of which are CDH. None of which play by the drum of CDH. None of which do the things that CDH allows you to do. You know, none of the games let you play with vintage level Magic cards in a competitive environment, a willing and growing competitive environment. And that's where a lot of it gets to me.
Okay, so no, I agree with you, right? So one of the things, like, I just started playing Lorcana recently, right?
Me
Why
too.
are we? That game is
That game's so fucking
inherently
good.
better than Magic the Gathering as far as a 1v1 format goes, right?
Absolutely.
The matchups are more.
It's Magic the Gathering 2, far as I'm concerned.
It's Magic the Gathering 2. The matchups are more balanced. The mulligans are easier. The player skill is more broad as far as like how to play the game. What is a correct decision? The thing about Magic is that the game's been established so long that there are quote unquote correct ways to play the game. And I think that there's a lot to dissect when it comes to that. But when veteran players say, hey, let's stop CDH from being unique. Let's stop CDH from introducing additional game mechanics, for lack of a better term, to the format.
Yeah,
and instead, let's just play 1v1 Magic, but in a 4-player format with some extra life so that my card, called Ad Nauseam, is better. There's no reason to play that game. You're not incentivizing any new players to join the format. There's no reason to encourage players to join this base for Commander, right? It's just players saying that I would like my card that I like, quote unquote, Ad Nauseam or Underworld Breach or whatever, with the specific card pool or life total or whatever, to be better. I would like this to be really strong. I would like to feel powerful when I cast and resolve this card.
Don't we all?
But there's nothing that differentiates you from any other card game on the market at that point, right? Any other TCG, whether it's Flesh and Blood, whether it's Lorcana, One Piece, like any of these things out there, they're all the same as whatever you're offering at that point. The only thing you're saying is, oh, what if we introduced 2 other players? So theoretically, if I make a mistake, one other player can capitalize instead of giving it to my opponent. You're basically introducing a format, and this will be a hot take, but you're basically introducing a format that says, what if my lack of skill doesn't punish me, but it punishes you, my opponent, for being 3rd or 4th in turn order? Like,
yeah.
And that's really, I'm sure that will be controversial, but that's kind of what it's saying, right? It's like, I don't want to lose to you, but I'd rather lose to the person who's immediately after me because you stopped me. So instead, I'm punishing you for stopping me from winning the game. And it's just this whole idea of like, I want to win fast. Great. If you can win fast and it's unpunished, go for it. I'm all in favor of it. I got aced by an excellent player. They go by Nate on the internet, N8. And they aced me on turn 1, first seat. There was nothing we could do. If we had a Force of Will, we would have blown them out. If we had any form of turn 0 interaction, we would have blown them out. No one had turn 0 interaction. No one had free interaction. We were just done, right? And great. That was excellent assessment on their part. They assessed their turn order correctly. They assessed their seat, like their role at the table correctly. They were the aggressive deck.
They won the die roll.
They won the die roll. They had everything going in their favor. That's fantastic. So good for them. They played correctly.
That is card games. Sometimes you just get a free win. That just
Sometimes
happens.
you do just get a free win. That just occurs. And like, congratulations. Honestly, we should have mulliganed better as their opponents, understanding what the roles at the table and their decks were.
Yeah.
That said, we didn't. They got a free win. Good for them. Was it RNG based? Somewhat, sure. It was also somewhat skill based because of mulligans, right? Why are we saying that other players, so like say someone mulls to 3 because they want Force of Will plus blue card and like maybe a land so they can make a turn 1 play to stop this turbo deck from winning if they're super scared. Why are we punishing that player so incredibly hard for stopping you the person to that player's left now, or to the turbo player's left, or whatever, now wins the game because they also kept a super fast hand. Like, maybe we should say, oh, that person mulled a 3. They're on a control deck. We should now, as the turbo deck, say, maybe we should like slow play this and try and accumulate additional resources or accumulate like some sort of protection before we go for it, because they mulled so low as a control deck, they obviously got something to stop us on turn 0. And that's sort of what this whole like episode boils down to, is just play smart. Don't get mad at other players for conspiring you, the fast player or the advantaged player or whatever, to stop you from winning the game. They need to communicate. They need to like devise a plan to stop you. Otherwise, you're basically just rolling the dice, whether it's for turn order or how many cards in hand or how poorly your opponents play into your Ristic study or something like that, as to how you win the game. As a mid-range player, I will say, if I resolve a turn 1 Ristic study, and I'm probably winning the game unless my opponents communicate and say, hey guys, I have this Boseiju or Nature's Claim or Abrupt Decay or whatever it is, and I'm willing to waste my entire turn to delete this card that's stopping us from playing the game. But if I do this, you guys shouldn't win this turn. And if my opponents say, great, I won't win this turn, then we can like together, we can delete the Ristic study so that they can like, this person, this mid-range player, can be stopped from advantaging themselves and they can win the game. Joe and I were playing a casual game just the other day. That's where true. All it took was, hey, I'm not sure you can beat Joe because they have 4 cards in hand and you have 0. And they have a semi-adequate board state, and your board state, while like admirable, you have no cards in hand and nothing coming up. Crazy. So like, why don't you not kill me and I can potentially stop their win because I have interaction in my hand. Player bites. Player says, okay, let's not, like, I'm not going to kill you. I'm able to stop Joe, just as I said I would be able to, and then the game rotates, and I suddenly jump to an advantage state because of the play that I've made, that stopped Joe from winning, but also advantaged me because it was not just a selfless like charity play. It was a smart play. Mm-hmm. It was leveraging my position as being able to interact into also, well, I guess I can also advance my board state, and now suddenly I'm able to overload a Cyclonic Rift, no one interacts with it, it resolves, and now I'm in a winning board state. Now at this point, obviously, I am ahead, right? Everyone should say this. Everyone in the world should say, oh, you just overloaded a Cyclonic Rift on turn 7. Yes, you're ahead. You have 4 creatures on the board, you have your commander in the field, you have 6 mana, like, you're ahead. If anyone says you're not, they're wrong. If anyone says that your 2 opponents should, we've already killed someone, your 2 opponents should not be politicking, communicating to say, hey, that person's super far ahead.
Or hey,
we should stop them.
Yeah, or like, what do you have access to? Like, what can you
or what do you have access to? What can you do in this situation? Exactly. Like, if anyone says you shouldn't be doing that, or it's annoying, or like it's not enhancing your foundational magic skills, like that is an objectively terrible idea. It's a bad take. People who say this, they might win games, but they're winning so on RNG. Like this idea of, oh, I'm not going to communicate with my opponents. I'm going to bank on everything I have, and like maybe I say, hey guys, do this, and they may or may not listen to me. Like, that's just a bad idea. That's bad politicking, but that is politicking, because let's be very clear at this point. Anyone who sits down at a 4-player Magic the Gathering game is politicking. Whether it's by saying, hey guys, I'm not going to politic with you this game. That is inherently a form of politics. It is the equivalent, and I've mentioned this before in one of our previous episodes on politics, this is the equivalency of world political leaders saying, I'm not going to negotiate with you. I do not negotiate with terrorists. I'm going to do what I want to do, no matter what, regardless of the repercussions. And there's a world where that is a good situation to be in. There's also a world where that is a very bad situation to be in. And I think a lot of times, based upon the way that like MTG Commander starts, where all players are theoretically inherently even, other than turn order, refusing to negotiate with your fellow opponents is an awful way to play the game. And that's the way that I see the game. And I think that I've seen a lot more players lose the game based on their I'm not going to politic with you stance. I'm not going to miss strike deals. I'm not going to communicate. Then I have players who are like, oh, well, I can do this. If I do this, will you do that? And players are like, oh, yeah, sure. We've referenced before, like, the Pacific Northwest Regional Championships games, where different players communicated super effectively with one another. And some of that was like, hey, I can stop this. If I stop this, are you going to win? No? Okay. Well, then I'm willing to stop this player from winning the game. I can do this. Can anyone else back me up or second this removal spell or whatever? If so, then I'll take this like sort of gambit-y action because it stops this person from winning the game, and we, as their three opponents, need them to not win the game for any of the three of us to have a chance at winning the game. And so that's where I think that like the foundational misassessment of what skills are when it comes to Commander is. It comes down to players saying, oh, it's all about how I play the card when I play the card. Sure, it is.
Sometimes, yeah, definitely.
Sometimes, exactly. But a lot of the time it's also like, what specific context are you playing that card in? For example, if I cast Silence in response to an opponent's attempted Thoracle, if I say, oh, Thoracle on the stack, Silence, my opponents are probably going to allow this to resolve because it allows me to either counterspell or prevent a consult or something like that in response to the Thoracle trigger. That said, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not going to go, okay, well, I'll establish this like infinite mana combo over the top in response and then kill the table in response to the cast of Thoracle under a silence protection. Just because like I cast the silence in response to an opponent's game-winning play. It's all about the context, right? It's all about the communication within that context. Because if an opponent says, oh, I have mental misstep, and I would very much like to misstep the consult that's following, but it could also be Tainted Pact. So silence is like, it's fair, I understand it, but I kind of want to misstep the silence now because your deck can win at instant speed. Like, now you're stuck with the, okay, well...
Now you're in the rock and the hard place.
Exactly. You're like, well, I was planning on winning under this silence, but like, you have a misstep, and if you misstep this, the console is probably going to resolve for like an infinite mana combo. Like, okay, well, I won't win this turn. I'll silence. Hopefully everything like resolves and nothing else occurs, and the turn will pass and it'll get to me, and I'll be able to try a win attempt protected with like a Grand Abolisher or a Ranger Captain, or like maybe even unprotected based upon what I have in hand, like at that time. It all just depends on context. Though, like, I'll take this opportunity to mention once again.
If this is happening on turn 1, that's different from if this is happening on turn 2.
Exactly, right? It's all context-based. And once again, I'll take this opportunity just to plug, if you make a deal with someone, keep the deal. Sure, you may win a 128-player, like tournament this one specific time. But you're going to do that, and you're going to do that off the back of a lie. No one will ever trust you again. No one will ever make a deal with you again. So the next time you're going to play a 240-player event with like a time twister or like a Black Lotus or whatever on the line, and you're like, guys, I truly have nothing. And they're like, yeah, you have one card in your hand and you're not showing it to us. I don't trust you. Counterspell your play. And they punt the game. You can only blame that on yourself for having lied in a previous game where you're like, oh yeah, guys, I have nothing. Silence resolves, the Oracle console. Like, you just have to like, it's all about context. It's all about communicating. It's all about being honest and having like best intentioned or at least faithful communication between yourself and others.
So I looked at the timer. That was like a 20-minute rant.
Dude, I have thoughts on this. I have thoughts on this.
Literally. I'm just like the entire time just like, I don't want to like interrupt this. You're kind of just spitting right now. I just want to let you spit.
Like, this is the way that we play in the Pacific Northwest, and we have a couple of players who have made scummy and or lied deals, and it's like really like not even finagled. It's like 20% past finagled, because like I can get on board with finagling, right? Like you made a deal. You said I won't win this turn. Final Fortune, I win the next turn. Yeah. But like
absolutely, I can
get on board with that.
Win the game.
You got me. Yeah. I didn't sign the terms and conditions the way I should have. But at the same time, we have players in the PNW who will say, "Oh, I'm not gonna like I won't cast a Dockside Extortionist this turn," and they straight up they don't reanimate it. They don't evo it into play. They say, "I'm gonna cast a Dockside Extortionist," and you're like, "Oh, well, you said you wouldn't cast it," and they're like, "Well, I'm casting it, and there's no legally binding obligation for me to hold to that, right?" Okay, great. You got this whole ass pod because you lied to us. Will you ever succeed again? Probably not, because we're never gonna trust you. We're gonna counterspell every pseudo advantageous play you make, and we're gonna make sure that you never get a leg up or into a position where you can try and advance yourself, because we don't trust you and we don't ever want you to win. And that's the type of like play that happens in this area, at least. Maybe it's different in other areas of the US. I don't know. I haven't played with those areas before. But I've also heard tell of like people who have played in those areas saying like, "Oh, this player said XYZ," and their friend said, "I don't trust them," and then counterspelled their play, and then I won because of it, even if it was maybe the correct play to let resolve. Like, that's the type of thing you have to deal with if you're a liar. So once again, continuing the rant, don't lie. Just if you're gonna politic, be sincere about it, be honest. And if you're gonna finagle, but don't go to the 20% beyond it where you're like, "Oh, I'm not gonna win this turn," and then like at the end step, I'm gonna win. Like, that's still the same turn, guy. Cast the Final Fortune.
Yeah. Once again, like the line is always, "Oh, I won't kill your thing. I will bounce it, however. I will exile it." Like,
that's one thing.
Just like I said I was gonna do, I did something gameplay mechanically very different.
Just make sure, like, and also on the flip side, don't be mad if someone finagles you. Like, if someone says, "I'm not gonna kill your thing, I'll exile your thing," you can't be mad at them. You didn't sign the terms and conditions. You didn't say, "Don't remove my thing."
Yeah,
just use broad blanket statements if it's that simple.
Yeah, I don't even know like where I need to. There's so much that you like covered and talked about. I don't even know like where to start dissecting it. I don't know. If you all got thoughts, put them in the fucking comments. Add us in the Discord, all that stuff. This is.
Yeah, please at me in the Discord if you have a thought, if you have a comment. Yeah, I will happily discourse with you.
Our Discord.
I may or may not disagree with you, but I will discourse with you.
Yeah. I found the original thought before the 20-minute rant, but like, it feels so like, I don't know. Fuck it. I don't care. I think a lot of the like change in like politicking comes down to, I think a large part of the game has moved past, we only interact when the Thorkel's on the stack, or only interact when the Breach is on the stack. Like, I feel like we have moved past the point where we are only casting counter spells on exactly the spells that say win the game on them or implicitly on them. And I think because of that,
the waters get murky, and because the waters get murky, that means people can start doing things. Welcome to the flexibility era, bitch. Politics is part of the reason why this game is cool. And I will never understand the notion of thinking that one of the core components that make this card game unique from any other card game, either in Magic or outside of it, is a detriment or at the very best a nuisance, a bug that needs to be fixed. I personally can't subscribe to that idea. It feels ludicrous to me. It's like saying, "Oh, I want to play Commander, but I don't want the Commander in the command zone." It's like, well, buddy boy, that's the reason you're here.
That's Legacy. Just play Vintage or Legacy at that point.
Vintage or Legacy, like those formats are fine. Please, if that's the gameplay you want, it's right there. You are allowed to enjoy these things.
Oh, but it's not inclusive. They don't let me proxy.
You can play both. Oh my god, Commander games go long. Did you get comboed out by Rogsai in turn 1? Bust out the Legacy. Play Legacy. Like, you can do both of these things. Yeah. It's wild. It's just wild. As I have gotten better at politicking, because I feel like I have made significant progress in my political game since last we talked about politics. It is, like, you can do, the Jedi mind tricks exist. They're cool. I've done them. They've been done to me hundreds of times. It's not a sexy kind of allure to it. Well, 40% is. 40% is. But that's not the entire thing. I think just making sure that the table is able to stay focused. I kind of like partially re-listened to our politics episode because I knew we wanted to talk about this. A large part of what we said is just making sure that everyone's on the same page. Making sure that, yes, we were sitting down with 3 mid-range decks and an ad nauseum deck, like a known ad nauseum list. Because we are entrenched in this format, because we know what these cards do, even if we aren't up to snuff 100%, chances are, given the way CDH players tend to be pretty obsessive about the thing that we're into, chances are there's going to be someone at the table that is more than willing to tell you that's an ad nauseum deck. Hit the ad naus deck. The card ad nauseum, high likelihood of being included in that person's list. You can lean on that information. You can go to a table and understand the broad strokes of the format, how to interact, the way priority works, the way, turn orders and windows work. You can take those things and lean on those as fundamentals and then rely on other people to fill in the cracks. That's where I think CDH is cool. That's where I think politics, to me, you start taking away the politics, you start taking away that ability to lean on the table as a resource for yourself to make sure the table is playing the best game possible. The other night you referenced a game. We got down to heads up. Holy shit, that was some of the best CDH I have played in a long time. We couldn't have gotten to that point if it weren't for politicking, and at that point it's just 1v1. Like it face up, like we don't need to lie about this. We both know what we're trying to do. But like the entire time, I'm not necessarily wheeling and dealing, but I'm making decisions that were bad, but I am recognizing that they're bad and I'm learning from them. There are mistakes and decisions I won't make again. However, you still have to talk with the table and explore the options, hear out the options. There was a play where I could have just held the Tie-Em hostage with an opposition agent in the yard. I instead decided I think it's too risky to let the Tie-Em stick around because you will be able to stop you from winning and give you the interaction you need. But you could also probably just win on top of it as well. It's really where that decision came down to. But you can't get to that point unless you know. And unless you are living, breathing, shitting, eating, I said eating twice, sleeping CDH, it's okay to not be doing that. It's okay to ask the table, is this the right thing? Should I be doing this now? Are we worried? If nothing else, you are trying to fish for your own information. Maybe you are doing this because you have combo in hand and you're trying to see what's potentially out there. That is obviously a thing that can happen. Cards in our hands are powerful for a reason. They are multifaceted for a reason. That's kind of the risk of Magic. Like, your opponent could be sitting on 3 lands in hand and draw a 4th. 4 cards in hand, yeah, they could be lands. They could be nothing. They could be everything. That's it's cardboard. It's card games. That's how this game works. That's how that's how this all works. And it's wild. It's just simply wild.
Right. And so like I think that so like this whole conversation like stems from a couple of tweets out there in the verse that like sparked this conversation between us, and then we wanted to share it with y'all. But like to be honest, it's once again, it's just comes down to like, so players who dislike politics say, oh, this is a good idea. It's just something that like, I don't like it when you politic. It generates value. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's strategically smart. I don't like it when you do that because I don't want to do that. It's annoying for me. Okay, great. Fantastic. If you don't want to do that and you would like to play with a similar card pool, go play Vintage or Legacy. Like,
or just don't compete in tournaments.
Or don't compete in tournaments. You don't have to. It's not required. And I truly do. I would love to have more people play. I respect the
absolutely.
fact that like proxies make the format more inclusive. I like that. There are a lot of really good players out there who make very good like threat assessment calls, who make strong political deals, who I've played with before because they're playing proxies and they're not, and the format is accessible to them based upon this idea of, oh, I don't want to purchase the cards for whatever reason. But I can play very smart, I can play very well based upon if I have access to the same card pool, right? Those players are good. They, like I said, good assessment, good deals, whatever. Don't complain about when someone else out politics them. They say, oh, maybe I, as a player, need to accommodate for something that I lost to. It's something that I would like to be better at, for sure, is saying, hey, I lost. Here's why I lost. I need to come up with some way to deal with that, to overcome that way that I lost. Stop. So it basically boils down to me, like, this whole episode, it's just like me saying, stop complaining about someone out politicking you. Stop complaining about, oh, this taxes my mental energy, blah, 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 blah. We all have struggles. We all have things that we deal with. Go ahead and, like, get better at the game. Level up. Like, find that moment, no matter who you are, and say, hey, maybe if I'm losing and I truly care about winning this match, I'm not going to worry about like taxing my mental energy to defend my position. Maybe I should just like defend my position no matter what the cost. I just want to win. And yes, is that somewhat exclusionary? Sure. Is that somewhat like taxing on people's ability? Sure. But at the same time, it's like the whole idea of you gotta draw a line somewhere. You have to say this is acceptable and this isn't. And for me personally, at least, I say that the idea of forcing people out of the format or forcing people to only be good at the format in the specific way you want to be good at the format based upon your like social media clout or whatever, that is not an acceptable thing. That's where I draw the line. Yeah. People should be able to feel free to innovate, feel free to like try new things. Because these people are the same people who are saying, oh, just play ad nauseum. Just play the way I'm playing. Just play Thoracle, blah, 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 blah. These are the same people who are making the argument of, oh, politicking is bad. Because, hey, I'll say it, if politicking becomes illegal, if players suddenly are not allowed to speak in a Magic the Gathering game, ad nauseum is 100% the best strategy in a 40 life format.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter. I'll risk I'm gonna risk my 20% win chance on a dice roll every single time, and then my ability to mulligan. because that's all it is. It has nothing to do with skill at that point. It's entirely luck based. And so once again, I think that it's unreasonable, and that is where I draw the line as a player, as a content creator at this point. Like, that's kind of what our podcast is. It's content.
You can put that label on yourself. I ain't touching the content creator label.
Fair enough. Like, whatever. But it's just like, you can't exclude people based on like solely their ability to mulligan or like win a die roll. That seems inane to me, and it doesn't matter who you are. And so like that's sort of where I end up in this discussion. Sort of like why I think that the whole thing about like, oh, politics is like it's too like advantageous to people who can communicate well, blah 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 blah.
Again, yeah, sometimes
it is, but sure, sometimes it is, but also like, so are mulligans. If you're super numbers based, if you're super skilled,
mulligans better
in,
be
like,
on fleek, dude. I swear to God, if that's
the
case.
case. If you're super skilled at mulliganing, if you're super skilled at like determining how numbers work, like, great, that's awesome for you. Personally, that's not how I'm not very, very skilled at mulligans. Everything that like I have come to be able to deduce in terms of mulligans has been hard fought in terms of like many hundreds of thousands of games that I have mulliganed for and practiced with and like talked with other people with. That is something that I have fought for to develop, and I still don't think that like mulliganing is a prime skill of mine. But I don't think that you should be invalidating my ability to play the game effectively based on my ability to communicate. Hey, guys, yeah, I know they haven't done anything this whole game, but that's what makes them scary, is they haven't done anything this whole game, and they're playing Grixis as their core, like, Evelyn is their commander. Like, they haven't done anything. Yeah. They're waiting for the perfect window. We need to be punching the shit out of them and forcing them into a suboptimal window to try and win the game so that we can counterspell them and stop them. Because us, the three other players playing whatever strategies that aren't that, need them to not win the game in order for any of the three of us to win the game. And so once again, it's all about communication, it's all about framing, it's all about like saying, hey, I'm not super good at numbers, but I do understand that like this is really bad for us. And if you're counterspelling my heuristic study, that means that you're not counterspelling their reanimate on World War Dragon. Like, and that's awful for the table compared to like heuristic study. While it is bad for the table, you can technically play around it. You cannot play around losing the game. And so that's really what it boils down to.
Specifically might, you can't. That was just supposed to be a funny
joke. That was the end of my thought.
Okay. Yeah, it's not an unlearnable thing. I am able to learn these things. I am not a great politicker. I am functionally able to speak at a normal level. I enjoy the people from time to time. I enjoy the talking even from time to time. That's why we have this podcast, because I enjoy the talking. Like, it's not like everything else. It's not unlearnable. It's not so far out of reach that it's not attainable if you want to. You can leave it on the table. That's fine. You can leave your mulligans on the table. That's fine. You can leave your deck construction on the table. That's fine. You can leave your micro and macro table on the micro and macro gameplay on the table. That's fine. However, if you want to get better, if you want to improve, these are things that you need to tackle and need to face at some point in your journey, however long that is, however short that is. If you put out the goal to yourself, I want to get better at this game. Unfortunately, politicking is one of those things you are going to need to get better at. Every route's going to be different. The route I have taken to attain my, I don't know, like yellow belt at politicking. What's above yellow belt again? White, yellow.
Bro, I don't know. I never took karate, so I don't know.
Purple, blue belt. I have my yellow belt in politicking. Like, I'm not white belt. I'm a little bit above white belt. I know what I'm doing to know how to not fuck up sometimes. I still fuck up a lot, but I know how to not really fuck up. And it's all a process. It's all muscle. It's all something that you can work on, you can improve, you can get better with. And once again, it's a core part of the game. This is something you can work on. It is not something that needs to be chewed out with. You know, I think a lot of people are just scared of the Jedi mind tricks, and it happens. It does. It really does.
You will occasionally get Jedi mind tricked.
I am
even
the
by
most
the
Jedi mind. Jedi mind trickable person in the world.
Well, it's gonna happen. The people who are like, dude, I hate politics. This is the worst thing in the world. They're the people who are gonna mind trick you the hardest. They're gonna be like,
Absolutely.
guys, they're gonna be silent the entire game and be like, guys, we need to counter this heuristic study or we lose the game. And then you're gonna go, okay, red blast the heuristic study. Person's gonna go, okay, pass. And then that same player's gonna go Thoracle console, and you're gonna like, damn. Really wish I had that heuristic study in play, or like a red blast or something.
It's something, yeah. Like, yeah. Sometimes that happens. You face it enough, you go, okay, man, how the fuck do I stop this? And you learn to be like, hold on, why are we listening to you? Why are you scared of this? Why do you not want the heuristic study around?
Yes.
Why specifically do you hate this card right
Exactly.
here?
You've taken 0 game actions all game. Why do you care about the heuristic study? You who was at 5 mana now. Why do you care about heuristic study?
Exactly.
Like, you've not done anything. This player has drawn 2 cards off it the whole game. Why do we need to destroy it?
Like, what active harm is it doing? It stops the ad nauseam. It stops the breach is what it's doing. That's what it does. That's what it does. So that's how you fight back that. There's the free nugget. That is a nugget of free information you can feel free to use. If you feel like you are being Jedi mind tricked into using your removal spell, ask them why you want it to be removed. And then when they give you an answer, you turn to the other 2 people that you were with and go, hey guys,
does that make
I am
sense?
one person with one perspective on the entire world in this game. How do you feel about this whole situation?
Honestly, though, that's the big thing, right? It's like, because I, as someone who does not lie in CDH games, but also is an incessant politicker in CDH games, even at the competitive level, it's like, okay, guys, we need to do XYZ. And yes, do I finagle? Yes. Does that mean that I'm going to lie to you? Never. Does that mean I'm going to go 20% beyond and say, hey guys, I'm not going to cast this Dockside Extortionist, cast Dockside Extortionist? Never. But like at the same time, you have to communicate, right? So making sure that you get multiple perspectives, like Joe said, making sure that you're finding out why a person is like politicking you a specific way, because whether or not it's incorrect or correct has nothing to do with why they're politicking you. Everyone is politicking to try and win the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not that's the hard part is deducing why they're trying to politic you. Is it to not lose the game, or is it so they can win the game? And that's the challenging part.
Yeah, and yeah. Oh, I 100% agree. That is the challenge. That is the challenging part. Yeah, I have nothing more I feel like I need to say on this topic. I feel like we've word vomited enough. Well, I think you have. I word vomited a little bit.
Oh, I could keep word vomiting, but I feel like I have nothing more useful to contribute to this conversation.
So in conclusion, if you Jedi mind trick, you are the scum of the earth, and if you play ad nauseum, you're God's gift to everyone.
So true. I would never Jedi mind trick, and I would always cast ad nauseum.
Oh God, I will get Jedi mind tricked again. It will happen this week. I can guarantee it. Probably by you.
I was gonna say, I guess that is like the last thing I can like contribute. Truly, is that Jedi mind tricks, while scary, are so infrequent. Like, even from someone who politics incessantly, Jedi mind tricks don't occur except in rare circumstances. Very, very, very rarely will you hear someone go, oh, this thing. And then someone else goes, oh, that thing. That was like unrelated or like very tangentially related, and it was exactly what the person wanted, and it was intentional. Like, that's so uncommon. It just, Jedi mind tricks, scary. Do they happen? No, because Jedi are extinct. Why? Because of the Sith. But no, for real, like Jedi mind tricks, they're cool. Is it something we would all love to be able to do on command? Yes. Is it something that any of us can do on command? No. Politics are really important to playing the game effectively at a competitive level, because communication is inherently important when there is more than 2 people involved, and it is inherently important when there are only 2 people involved, because as we've talked about when comparing the format to Modern or Legacy or something, communicating with something like the pen trick or something like bluffing based upon how you tap your mana or anything like that is really important. So
I thought of another 1v1 bluff that's one of my all-time
oh
favorites.
yeah, please, I'd love to hear
Okay, so this is the pithing needle trick.
Oh, this is so good.
I freaking love this one. Okay, so the scenario is this. It's a Modern event. This is some time ago. Deathrite Shaman was legal in Modern. The player with a Deathrite Shaman also has a polluted delta on the battlefield. They have some mana up. The Deathrite Shaman is active. And I don't think the person casting the Pithing Needle was at lethal damage from the Deathrite Shaman. I think they just wanted to maybe get out from under it. Either way, the Deathrite Shaman player has a counter spell. This person casting the Pithing Needle is trying to figure out a way to get the Pithing Needle to resolve in whatever way, shape, or fashion. So what does the player do? Looks at the board, looks at the Deathrite Shaman, reads the abilities of Deathrite Shaman, asks for a judge, asks the question, can I name Deathrite Shaman with Pithing Needle? I think Pithing Needle was known information at the time. Either way, it was about to be irrelevant, whether or not that was the case. Judge says, yes, you can legally declare Deathrite Shaman as the name of Pithing Needle. Now, the person with the Deathrite Shaman, the polluted delta, and the counterspell in hand, they don't really care about not getting access to their Deathrite Shaman. They just need to untap and be able to do their thing. They're kind of just holding open mana to see if the window's clear. Person casts the Pithing Needle, they go, yeah, sure, it resolves. Chump. Cool. Enter the battlefield. We're naming polluted delta. Your land is now locked down. You are now 2 turns behind me. Symphony. Absolute symphony. I love that one so much.
It's so good. It's so good.
It's
That's a Jedi mind trick. Doesn't happen frequently.
No, but when it does, oh baby, is it cool.
Oh man, are you riding high?
Yeah. Yeah, that's just another one. Man.
All right.
Those ohm limits just get me every time. I love them so much.
So good. Or chalice checking.
Oh,
bro, we could go on for days with these. Yep. Just like the insane Jedi mind tricks that have occurred that will never work again.
They work exactly one time and then never again.
Yeah, but with that.
Don't talk to me during CDH, otherwise I think you're awful and terrible. And that the last 2 statements I said were a lie.
Truly, don't even say hi to me.
Don't even say hi to me. I can't look at you unless you want to say nothing and only say the words cast ad nauseum on end stuff. All right. Actual outro, 3rd time. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for listening to Atlas ramble for an hour straight. I had a great time. I hope you all had a great time.
Thank you everybody for indulging my passions.
Absolutely. Discord's in the description. Hit us up on there if you want to say Atlas is a big dumb duty head.
Please do. Right. I would love to hear it.
Absolutely. All right. We'll catch you later.